Madam, your kind is simply not welcome here. I suggest you leave before I call security.
How dare you? I am a paying guest.
A hotel manager looked at an elderly black woman and said, "We don't have rooms for people like you." He thought she was just a poor grandma who couldn't afford his fancy hotel. He laughed when she asked for help. What he didn't know, that grandma was Dr. Eleanor Hayes, a retired surgeon with 40 years of experience. And in exactly 20 minutes, when the state governor collapsed from a heart attack in that same hotel lobby, she would be the only person who could save his life. The manager who laughed at her would end up on his knees, begging for forgiveness. This story will show you why you should never judge someone by their appearance. Because sometimes, the person you disrespect might be the only one who can save everything you care about. Before we dive into this powerful story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more stories about respect, justice, and karma. Now let's see what happened. Who is Dr. Eleanor Hayes? Eleanor Hayes was 68 years old. She had been a cardiothoracic surgeon for 40 years, one of the first black female heart surgeons in the state. She had performed over 3,000 life-saving surgeries. Governors, senators, and business leaders had all trusted her with their lives. But 2 years ago, Eleanor retired. She sold her big house and moved to a small apartment. She drove an old car and wore simple clothes. Money didn't matter to her anymore. She had enough saved, and she preferred a quiet, humble life. Eleanor was in town visiting her daughter who had just given birth. She needed a hotel room for one night because her daughter's apartment was too small. She walked into the Grand Plaza Hotel carrying a small overnight bag, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. The manager, Richard Cooper, was 42 years old. He had been managing the Grand Plaza Hotel for 5 years. The hotel was expensive and exclusive, catering to wealthy business people and politicians. Richard was proud of his hotel's reputation, but he had a serious problem. He judged people by their appearance. If someone didn't look wealthy, Richard treated them like they didn't belong. He had kicked out delivery drivers, refused service to people in casual clothes, and made countless customers feel unwelcome based on how they looked. Richard's staff knew about his attitude, but they said nothing. He was their boss, and nobody wanted to lose their job. The governor's visit on this particular day, Governor James Mitchell was staying at the Grand Plaza. He was in town for a conference and had a full schedule of meetings. The governor was 61 years old and had a history of heart problems, though few people knew this. His security team was with him, but they were trained for physical threats, not medical emergencies. Eleanor had no idea the governor was staying there. She just needed a room. Eleanor walked up to the front desk. The lobby was beautiful, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive furniture everywhere. A young receptionist named Maria smiled at her. "Good evening, ma'am. How can I help you?" "I'd like a room for one night, please," Eleanor said politely. Maria started typing on her computer. "Of course, let me check availability." Richard Cooper appeared from his office. He had seen Eleanor walk in through the security cameras. He immediately walked over and placed his hand on Maria's shoulder. "I'll handle this, Maria," he said, his voice cold. He looked Eleanor up and down with obvious disgust. Her jeans were old. Her sweater had a small stain from when her grandson had spilled juice on her earlier. Her shoes were worn. "Ma'am, I don't think we have any rooms available tonight," Richard said. Maria looked confused. "But Mr. Cooper, we have—" "We're fully booked," Richard interrupted sharply. Eleanor remained calm. "Your website says you have vacancies. I checked before coming." Richard's jaw tightened. "Our website must not be updated. We're hosting important guests tonight, high-profile people. I'm sure you'd be more comfortable at a motel down the street." The way he said motel was insulting. Several other guests in the lobby turned to watch. Eleanor took a deep breath. "I can pay whatever the rate is. I just need a simple room." "I'm sure you can," Richard said mockingly. "But this hotel maintains certain standards. Perhaps you should try somewhere more within your budget." Maria looked upset. "Mr. Cooper, I can—" "Maria, go check on the housekeeping staff," Richard snapped. "Now." Maria hesitated, gave Eleanor an apologetic look and walked away. Eleanor stood her ground. "I'm a paying customer. Why are you refusing me service?" "Listen, lady," Richard said, lowering his voice but keeping his condescending tone. "This is a 5-star hotel. We serve business executives, politicians, celebrities. You can't even afford to eat at our restaurant. Do us both a favor and leave before I have to call security." An older white couple nearby whispered to each other. Eleanor heard one of them say, "He's right. She doesn't belong here." but a younger black employee restocking the coffee station looked angry. He wanted to speak up, but was afraid of losing his job. Eleanor felt the familiar sting of discrimination. Even after 40 years of saving lives, even after all her accomplishments, she was still judged by the color of her skin and her clothes. "I'm not leaving until you give me a room or a real reason why you can't," Eleanor said firmly. Richard's face turned red. "Fine, you want a reason. We don't serve people who can't respect our establishment, and frankly, we have a reputation to maintain. Now leave, or I will call the police." Just then, the elevator doors opened. Governor Mitchell walked out with 3 security guards. He was heading to a meeting room for a press conference. The governor was known for being fair and progressive, often speaking about equality and justice. Richard immediately switched his attitude. He rushed over to the governor, all smiles and politeness. "Governor Mitchell, everything is prepared for your press conference. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" The governor nodded distractedly, looking at some papers. "Just water, thank you." Eleanor watched this transformation. The same man who had just threatened to call police on her was now bowing and scraping before the governor. Richard snapped his fingers at another employee. "Get the governor water, the expensive imported kind, not the regular bottles." As Richard fussed over the governor, Eleanor decided she'd had enough. She turned to leave. She would find another hotel, file a discrimination complaint later, and try to forget this humiliating experience. But as she walked toward the door, she heard a sound that changed everything. A heavy thud. A gasp. Shouting. Eleanor spun around. Governor Mitchell had collapsed. He was on the floor, clutching his chest, his face gray and twisted in pain. The security guard stood frozen, unsure what to do. Richard was panicking. "Call 911, someone screamed. "He's having a heart attack," another person shouted. The security guards tried to help, but they weren't trained for this. One tried CPR, but was doing it wrong. Precious seconds were ticking away. Eleanor didn't hesitate. She dropped her bag and ran toward the governor. "Move aside," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm a doctor." Everyone stepped back. Eleanor knelt beside the governor, her hands already checking his pulse, her eyes assessing his condition. Years of surgical training took over. "He's in cardiac arrest," Eleanor said calmly. "Someone call 911 and tell them we need an ambulance with cardiac equipment immediately. You," she pointed at one security guard, "get me the emergency medical kit from behind the front desk. Hotels are required to have one. Now," the guard ran. Eleanor positioned her hands on the governor's chest and began CPR. Her movements were precise, professional, controlled. She counted compressions out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Richard stood frozen, his face white with terror. If the governor died in his hotel, his career was over. The entire state would blame him. The security guard returned with the medical kit. Eleanor pulled out the portable defibrillator. "Everyone step back." She placed the pads on the governor's chest. The machine analyzed his heart rhythm. "Shock advised," it said. "Clear." Eleanor shouted and pressed the button. The governor's body jerked. Eleanor immediately resumed chest compressions. "Come on, governor, stay with me." 30 seconds later, the governor gasped. His eyes fluttered open. Color began returning to his face. He was breathing. "Don't try to move," Eleanor said gently. "You've just had a cardiac event. The ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay." The lobby erupted in relieved gasps and scattered applause. The governor's security chief was on his phone, coordinating with the hospital. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The governor, still weak, looked up at Eleanor. You saved my life." "Who are you?" "Dr. Eleanor Hayes," she said. "Retired cardiac surgeon, just in the right place at the right time." The security chief's eyes widened. "Dr. Hayes from Memorial Hospital. You performed surgery on my father 5 years ago. You saved his life, too." Eleanor smiled slightly. "I remember, Mr. Chen, how is he?" "He's wonderful, thanks to you." The ambulance arrived. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. Eleanor gave them a quick, professional briefing on what had happened and what she'd done. They looked impressed. "You did everything perfectly, doctor," one paramedic said. "You bought him the critical time he needed." As they loaded the governor onto the stretcher, he grabbed Eleanor's hand. "Thank you, I owe you my life. Please come to the hospital with me. I want my family to meet the woman who saved me." Eleanor nodded. "Of course." Then the governor noticed Richard standing nearby, looking terrified. "Richard, you're the manager, right? Make sure Dr. Hayes has anything she needs, anything." Richard's throat was dry. "Why, yes, governor." But before Richard could say more, Maria, the young receptionist, spoke up. She'd been watching everything. "Governor Mitchell, I'm sorry, but you should know. Mr. Cooper refused to give Dr. Hayes a room tonight. He was extremely rude to her. He told her she didn't belong here. He was going to call the police on her. Right before you collapsed. The lobby went silent. Everyone stared at Richard. The governor looked confused, then angry. "Is this true?" the governor asked, his voice weak but sharp. Richard's face went from white to red. "Governor, there was a misunderstanding. He called me lady like it was an insult," Eleanor said quietly. "He said people like me don't belong in his hotel. He judged me by my clothes and my skin color. Then minutes later, I saved your life." The governor's security chief looked furious. Several guests who had witnessed Richard's behavior nodded in agreement. "This is unacceptable," the governor said. "We'll discuss this later. Dr. Hayes, please come with me." As the paramedics wheeled him out, Eleanor followed, leaving Richard standing in the lobby with dozens of eyes staring at him in disgust. At the hospital, Eleanor stayed with the governor until his family arrived. His wife hugged Eleanor and cried, "You saved him. How can we ever thank you?" "I'm just glad I was there," Eleanor said. The governor's heart attack made national news. Every news outlet wanted to interview Dr. Eleanor Hayes, the humble retired surgeon who saved the governor's life. Her photo was everywhere, the same woman who had been insulted and turned away just hours earlier. Back at the Grand Plaza Hotel, Richard was in his office watching the news in horror. His phone rang. It was the hotel's owner. "Richard, what the hell happened? I'm seeing reports that you refused service to the woman who saved the governor." "Is that true?" Richard stammered. "Sir, I didn't know who she was." "That's exactly the problem. You judged her without knowing anything about her. Do you realize what this is doing to our reputation? Social media is destroying us." Indeed, Twitter was on fire. Grand Plaza discrimination was trending. People were posting one-star reviews. Civil rights organizations were calling for boycotts. The hotel owner arrived the next morning. He called a staff meeting with Richard present. "Richard Cooper, you're fired, effective immediately. Your actions have caused irreparable damage to this hotel's reputation. We stand for hospitality and respect. You stand for discrimination and judgment. Pack your things." Richard tried to protest. "I've been a loyal manager for 5 years, and in one night you destroyed what we built. Leave." Now, the staff watched silently as Richard left. Maria, the receptionist, was promoted to assistant manager that same day. Her first action was to draft a new policy. All guests are welcome at the Grand Plaza, regardless of appearance, race, or perceived wealth. Richard tried to find another hotel management job. But every time potential employers Googled his name, they found the story of how he insulted Dr. Eleanor Hayes. No one would hire him. He ended up working at a small motel, the same kind of place he'd tried to send Eleanor to. A week later, a reporter asked Dr. Hayes if she was angry about how she'd been treated. "Angry?" "No," Eleanor said. "Disappointed, yes, but also hopeful." "Hopeful?" the reporter asked. "Because this story is teaching people an important lesson. You never know who someone is by looking at them. That homeless person on the street might be a veteran who served our country. That janitor might be working 3 jobs to send their kids to college. That elderly woman in old clothes might be a doctor who saved thousands of lives." "What would you say to Richard Cooper?" the reporter asked. Eleanor thought for a moment. "I'd say I forgive him, not because what he did was right, but because holding on to anger only hurts me. But I'd also tell him to use this as a lesson. He lost his career, his reputation, everything. Not because I wanted revenge, but because actions have consequences." Governor Mitchell made a full recovery. At a press conference, he announced several new initiatives. "Dr. Eleanor Hayes saved my life with her skill, her knowledge, and her grace. She did this after being treated horribly by a man who judged her by her appearance. This needs to end." The governor signed new anti-discrimination laws for public accommodations. He also established the Eleanor Hayes Scholarship Fund for minority students pursuing medical degrees. "Dr. Hayes spent 40 years saving lives," the governor said. "Now her story will save something else. It will save people from ignorance and prejudice." Eleanor was invited to the signing ceremony. When she walked in wearing the same jeans and sweater from that night, the entire room gave her a standing ovation. 6 months later, Eleanor gave a speech at a medical school graduation. "I want to tell you about the night I saved a governor's life," she began. "But more importantly, I want to tell you about the hour before that when a hotel manager tried to humiliate me." She told the whole story. The students listened in silence. "Here's what I learned," Eleanor said. Character is not about how people treat you when they know who you are. Character is about how people treat you when they think you're nobody. That manager revealed his character by treating me as less than human, but I also revealed my character by helping anyway. I didn't save the governor to prove something to that manager. I saved him because that's who I am. I'm a doctor. I help people, that's my character, and no one's insult can change that. She paused. As you go out into the world as doctors, you'll face discrimination. Some of you will face it because of your race. Others because of your gender, your accent, your age. But remember this, your character is not determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat others, especially those who can do nothing for you. Treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. Treat the homeless patient with the same care as the billionaire. Because you never know, that person you're tempted to dismiss might be the most important person in the room. Or they might just be a human being who deserves your respect. Either way, treat them right. The graduates gave her a standing ovation that lasted 3 minutes. The lesson we all need Eleanor's story spread across the country as a reminder that respect should be given freely, not earned by appearance or status. The Grand Plaza Hotel recovered by genuinely changing its culture. They hired diversity trainers, created strict anti-discrimination policies, and even invited Eleanor back for a formal apology dinner, which she graciously accepted. Richard Cooper eventually found work again, but at a much smaller scale. He told a friend years later, "I lost everything because I forgot that every person has value. I saw clothes and skin color instead of character. That one mistake cost me my career. But more than that, it cost me my dignity. I can't take back what I did, but I can make sure I never judge anyone like that again." Eleanor continued her quiet life, visiting her grandchildren and occasionally volunteering at free medical clinics. She never sought fame or recognition. She simply lived by the principle she'd followed her entire life: treat everyone with respect and dignity, and use your skills to help others. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. We share real stories about respect, justice, and the importance of character. Drop a comment. Have you ever been judged by your appearance? How did you handle it? Hit that notification bell so you never miss when someone learns that respect isn't about status. It's about humanity. Thanks for watching, and remember, the person you dismiss today might be the person who saves your life tomorrow. Treat everyone with respect. Always.